Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon. I hope you're all doing super. It is the brand new week. It is the brand new month. We're in the second half of 2024, the 1st of July today. If you can hear me okay, see you alright, put into the chat and let me know. Hey Basanta, how are you doing? Good morning. First one in, bright and early. Hey Stefan, hey Jimmy, hey Christina, hope you're all well. I believe that we're streaming good and I should be streaming well. Hey Lily, how are you doing? Right across the board, we are on X, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitch, we're on YouTube as well. If you are on the session, please drop a message and say hi. Let me know where you're joining us from. And for all the regulars, a big welcome back. I hope you've had a fantastic weekend and you caught the Euros. A couple of you supporting the England team got through. We were just talking about this on Discord channel. Looking forward to the German-Spain matchup coming up. I don't know when it is. I have not watched that much of the Euros, but that's coming up. And speaking about the Euros, the euro dollar is climbing to the upside because over the weekend we had the French parliamentary election. Macron is no wait, was it Macron? No, Le Pen, I think. Le Pen was leading, but there is speculation that she's not going to get the full enough votes to get majority, so could have a bit of a hung parliament, but it seems like it's still going to be okay. Euro dollar is still climbing. I am coughing a little bit. Oh, okay. Now, let's see. Catching up with, I don't know why it's not loading, but hey, Gusto, how are you doing? Hey, Diana. India T20 champions. I did not follow that at all, so I'll take your word for that, Naren. Hey, Robbie, how are you doing? Hey, Nav. Oh, good, fantastic. Oh, okay, the chat is working. I just didn't scroll, so I have to scroll and it works now. Hey, Haida, how are you doing? Good morning. Alrighty, so supporting England is stressful. That's one reason why I don't watch the national teams. I just prefer the club matches. Okay, so with all that, quick disclaimer. Okay, before a quick disclaimer, please remember, help me out, click that like and subscribe button as you go through the session. If you have any questions at any point in time, please feel free to put it into the chat and let me know. And if you haven't already, I think most of you have, but if you haven't already, do remember to click on that Discord link right at the top of the chat to join us on Discord. Okay, and sorry about the cough. Good morning, Pips Apprentice, how are you doing? And with all that said, quick disclaimer, any information contained on this webinar should not be construed as advice and is presented as educational material only, as the contents of this webinar are not intended to be a recommendation to trade a financial product. Please remember that your objectives, financial situation and needs has not been considered, and you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances. Now with that, take that away. Nope, not that, take that away. What has happened since the last time we spoke? There we go. Okay, what has happened since the last time we spoke? You see that on Friday last week, we had the core PCE price index release for the US. We had a core PCE release for the US where we saw there, it was a why is it not loading? Okay, it was a 0.2. It got revised slightly upwards to a 0.3, but it got released at a 0.1 as expected. right? So core PCE price index inflationary gauge for the Fed Reserve is showing that slowdown in inflation growth at 0.1%, which led to, zoom in there, you see that the dollar index set in that consolidation. It, however, did break that trend line on release of the news right there. Oops, no, not that one. Right there. Zoom in a bit. All right, you tried to break the trend line. It set along that trend line, along that support level of 105.90. At that point on release, it spiked down. Zoom in a bit. There we go. Okay, that's better. It spiked down slightly, push right back up, and then continue to consolidate, but then at 10 broke to the downside. I don't think it was because of the consumer sentiment news, right? I don't think it's because of that news. I think it was more because of the end of the week, end of the month, end of the quarter. We saw a bit of a profit taking. We saw that push back down, breaking that trend line and that support level, which led to that downside move on the dollar index as it continued lower, right? We saw the gap here. We saw the gap here because of what happened here on the euro, where it gapped to the upside, right? It ended the week sitting at about the 107.14, 107.15 level, and then it gapped to the upside and it's pushing up now, retracing slightly, but I think it's going to continue pushing higher. Why did it gap up? It was because of the news on Sunday, where we had the French parliamentary elections, like we were saying at the start. Right, where the far-right national rally scene leading the first round of the snap election. Le Pen party set to win the first French vote, but I was just looking at the headliner just then. There is not really speculation, but there is a poll, or there's an idea that Le Pen might not get the majority votes and might not be able to get majority in parliament, which this was couple of elections ago, where we always saw a lot of hung governments, hung parliaments, right? It's coming back to that point again. So if they don't get the full parliamentary votes, it might come out of a hung election or hung parliament again. But what we saw as a result of that news was the euro dollar spiking or gapping to the upside and continuing to push higher. It came as high as just before this session, or at the start of this hour, 1.0770, now retracing slightly, but looking at continuation back up. With all that said, today is Monday, the 1st of July, where we do have the German preliminary CPI to be released. It was 0.1, it's expected 0.2, it's not out yet. Apart from that, we have a whole bunch of news, which I don't see these are as big news, not going to move prices too much. It does feel like markets are sitting right across a little bit. We saw good movements towards the end of the week on Friday last week. It looks like it's sitting right across now. Might pause a little bit, but for this week, like we're looking at it, we do have a couple of news. CPI to be released tomorrow for the Eurozone. We have JOLTS to be released for the USD. Non-farm employment change, ADP non-farm employment change on Wednesday. And then parliamentary elections on the 4th of July for the UK, CPI for the Swiss, and then NFP for the US on Friday. So it might look like a little bit of a quiet session today, but if you don't have much setups to get into, don't feel like you have to rush into it. I was been through the day, I've been scrolling through the charts, I've been looking. I don't actually see many setups likely for today. I think that it's going to take a bit of time to develop before we get into mid of the week, and we're going to see some better price movements. Okay. Hey Jumarinus, how you doing? Hey Jokes, how you doing? Haven't seen you for a while. Glad to see you back. So with all that said, now looking at the dollar index, right? Looking at the dollar index, you see that that didn't happen. It bounced. It didn't bounce off the trend line, but in fact it broke through that trend line, so it didn't push to the upside. It's completely reversed that, so we can take that away. That 50%, I'll put that back in again just to explain something. So we were talking about it, that it has to stay, should stay above 105.90, right? And then we were looking at that 50% as the point where if it broke that, we're going to see that bearish move. And that's why we saw, once it broke that point, we saw a big push to the downside. So take all of that away. I'll keep this here just to highlight this point, right? These 2 points here. Mainly this one here and this one here, right? So I'll keep this line here at 105.73 to highlight those points. It's a bit of a interim resistance level. That support is now turned to become a resistance, and it came down to test 105.40, which we found relatively good support at this point. Now zoom out a little bit just to have a look at everything. Again, if we took this whole move up, you see that this point here at 105.40 is that 38.2 level, and then the next level down would be at 50 retracement at 105.20. Oh no, yeah, 105.20 to 105.15 will be the next support level. Okay, I'm just checking my lines. Quite happy with that. Now zoom back in. I want that as my support. I'll put that down there, catching this point, and I'll take this up to consider that whole thing as my support level. Okay, there we go. That makes sense. That's my interim. Okay, I'm happy with that. I don't need this trend line as much. Let me see. If I took that to that point. Sorry, I'm just going to check some levels first. That point here. That point there. Okay, good. So now once we've revised this trend line again, catching these two main points, we're looking at the dollar index now sitting. There we go. Okay, the dollar index now sitting or testing this 105.40 level, bouncing back a little bit. I know there will be some questions about whether it's going to break this or whether it's going to come back and close this gap. Could be, but I think that it might take a little bit longer. Main thing I'm wondering now, the main question to have now is the dollar index going to break this level, this 105.40 level? And if it does break this 105.40, it'll be breaking a 38.2 retracement level, right? 38.2 retracement level, and then those previous swing levels as well. If it does break, then naturally we should be expecting it to head to the 105.15 support level, but it looks like it's gonna sit there, it's gonna bounce at that level for a little bit. Okay, so I'm looking at this point and I'm thinking of this. Okay, hang on. Take that away. That. Okay. Hey Snowflakes, how you doing? Augusto, happy Canada Day. Yeah, I didn't know it's Canada. The Canadians are on a holiday, on a bank holiday for Canada Day. So anyone from Canada here? Happy Canada Day. UJ did not go down. Yes, we'll talk about the US yen shortly when it comes up. That's going to be interesting. Hey Emmett, how are you doing? Okay, so the dollar index finding a bit of support. I'm anticipating what could happen here is a bit of a bounce and then a push back again. Okay, the main question, again, like I'm repeating myself, but the main question is whether it's going to break this point. I don't see any big reason why it would reverse too strongly, right? So I do think that it's going to bounce, but then it might bounce back up and then after that come back down to test this level again. So what I'm looking at, no big directional bias on the dollar index yet. Right, I'm looking at this on the 1st of July. The dollar index is tested 105.48. No, not that. 105.40 support or level. Retracing. Right, so it's retracing, and you all know I don't like trying to guess how far it's going to retrace by. It looks like it's going to retrace quite a. It could retrace quite a bit. It could retrace all the way up to 105.70. I don't want to see that as much because that's going to make it even more tricky. But it could retrace quite a bit. Check the Bollinger, it's fine. So it does look like it's going to push up a little bit. Okay. Retracing needs to stay below 105.70 to remain bearish. Okay, so it needs to stay below 105.70 to remain bearish. It's really at the point where anything could happen at this point. It's in that, if I circle that, right? If I circle this whole area, it's in this area where it could just bounce around or consolidate at this point. What I want to see, or what I'm looking out for, would be a break of this area to head down to that 105.15 level. Okay, so with that, then we're saying that look for retracement to complete, price break 105.40, could trade down to 105.15 support level. There we go. Right, so it's retracing, it's pushing back up a little bit. I'm looking for it to complete that retracement as much as it would go, possibly turn down, break this area to head down to that 105.15 level. Make sense? Could it fill the gap and reverse? I think that if it fills that gap, it could continue pushing up, right? Because it is quite a big reversal to fill the gap, and then it would just momentum could push it up for a higher move. So that's why I'm looking at it. It needs to stay below that point. If it breaks above, if it fills and breaks above this point, then we're looking at further upside on the dollar. All right, so this retracement and that gap, that resistance level is going to be the holding points for the directional bias of the dollar index. Yep. Right, and I think that, however, the dollar this time is a little bit of a flip where it's not so much the dollar index pushing prices around. I feel that it's come down to what the euro is doing. Right, we've seen the euro moving more than a lot of the other currency pairs, and it's the euro pushing it up, and that's why we saw that drop on the dollar index. Now euro dollar retracing, that's why we're seeing that retrace. So I feel that for today, it seems like the euro dollar is driving most of the volatility and also the liquidity. All right. Then with that, looking at the Kiwi, that didn't test and reject. It tested and it broke right through. So we take that away. That's not a resistance anymore, that's a support. Let me just check. Okay, I don't need that. We take that away. I don't need that. I want to catch this point down here, which also coincides with about that 50% level. That's now my support. Okay. What I was thinking, I was watching this and I was getting a little bit thinking of the speculative move where could the Kiwi dollar, if we see dollar index continue to push down, could this be one where it's tested and if it breaks up, continue to the upside, you know, you'd be looking at a bit of a reversal on the Kiwi. 6110. Stop loss can be quite tight, no more than 20 pips on this. Take profit, you can go up to 35, but I think that you can even be looking for up to that point of 61.8, which is about 50 pips to the upside with a bit of hesitation at 6145. So considering a possible reversal on the Kiwi dollar to the upside if we see the dollar index weaken further, right? You see that it's sitting right there. It hasn't moved that much despite the dollar index having that relatively big green candle to the upside. So thinking that it might sit there. If it doesn't break down from this level, we could see a push to the upside. So 6110, 20 to 50 to the upside. Put that in, buy at 0.6110, stop loss 20, take profit 50 to the upside for the Kiwi. That looks good, sitting right there, that's fine. Then on to the Aussie. We were talking about this with Basanta as well before the session, right? I came in, I was looking at the Aussie pushing down. I thought, great, it's pushing down. Can it break this level? There, right there, right, and sell down. Didn't. I was so keen on this to sell down. I thought with that range on the Aussie, we could look at it pushing back down again, but it came so close and then it pushed right back up again, right? So now it's pushing back up again. If it does continue higher, so we take that away, that previous high we can revise to that point. If it does push up again, that would mean dollar weakness to continue to the upside. You see, it's very weird. It's very weird that we're not seeing that very clear correlation, because dollar index pushing up, right, getting that strength, but yet we're seeing the Aussie dollar push up as well. So very short-term trade here, more on the M15 kind of time frame, is that if it breaks above 6685, is too near, 6690, that's a very small trade of 15. You can go up to that resistance of 35. Your stop loss will be no more than 15 pips that way. I don't, looking at it on the bigger picture, I don't really like it, just because we've seen big reactions on the Aussie at those levels, right? At those levels, so it'll be a small short-term scalp to the upside. I would just prefer, this is looking at the bigger picture, how it's reacted on those times. I would actually prefer to wait it out, let it push up, look for a test and reject back down. Basanta says, look like there's a bullish flag. I think I know what you're referring to in that sense, right? Yes, but I don't think it's going to be a, so I'm looking for it to push up, but I'm not going to trade it up. I'll look for it to push up and look for that rejection back down. That bullish flag could play out to push it higher, but that resistance at 6726 or 6725 seems to be holding quite strong. So again, I'll be looking for a reaction at 67. Right, Aussie dollar could trade higher, but wait, look for reaction at 0.67 resistance. Right, I would actually prefer, if it did test and reject, then you look for that selling opportunity. Selling opportunity at 67, below 67, back down. You got a good 75 pip move to the downside. Stop loss, you can have it at 20 pips, you can have it at 30 pips. It will make a lot more sense than to try and catch that move up. Right, so wait for it, test and reject, then you look to sell it back down. That's what I would do on the Aussie dollar. Right, if you look at it on H4 time frame, you see that that area has seen a lot of reaction over the times, and that's why I want to keep and hold and wait for a reaction there. Okay, then onto the US yen. What's happening with the yen? The dollar fell, right? The dollar fell on Friday. First thing I did when I saw that happen, first thing I did, I was checking my yen, because I had my order here. I did move it up, right? I did move it up slightly, ever so slightly. I put it just at that 610 level right there. Right, I put it just up to 6610. It came down, it almost triggered, right, and then it bounced right back up. And at that point I didn't want it to trigger, right? I was actually watching it because I didn't want it to trigger. I was ready to remove that order, because this order was supposed to try and catch an intervention from the Bank of Japan, not a small gradual move down on the dollar index. So I was watching, ready to cancel the order. It came right down, almost hit, and then it bounced right back up. Okay, so my order is still there, but I've actually moved it back down to that point, the previous level at 159.75. Down a bit, 75 down there, right? Just because I don't want it to get caught just by a little bit of fluctuations. I want it to spike down all the way. So on the US yen, what you're seeing here, it's pushed up, right? Looking for that to, it can do whatever it does, all right? The dollar index at this point can do whatever it does at this point. I'm looking at the yen. If you're a little bit more daring, I'm not going to enter this trade, right? I don't think I think it's a bit too risky. Especially for the start of the month. I want to try and build a little bit of a profit profile first before if I get into this trade. But if you're a little bit daring, it's pushing up. There is a resistance that has held since Friday, right, through that. So you definitely don't want to be looking to sell it now unless there's an intervention, but you could be looking at 161.30. Stop loss about 40 pips. Take profit, you go up to about 70 pips towards 162. Okay, very, very historically high level. I think it's a 30-year, 40-year high at 162. So be very careful with that. But it looks like as it tries, we might see it tap and push strongly to the upside. So I'm looking at that speculative level, or a bit of a choppy, dangerous level, where we could be looking at buy at 161.30, stop loss 40, take profit 70 towards that 162 round number resistance level on the yen. As I'm talking about, I mean, as I was saying, I don't want to get into this, I won't get into this, but I'm starting to think, maybe if it does break out, it might be worth a quick trade, but it's not going to be super high on my list. Okay, then onto the pound dollar. You see that we were talking about that just before the session. Pound dollar pushed up, tested that resistance, failed to break that resistance. It just tapped it and it's come retracing back down. This could also be one of the drivers behind why we're seeing the dollar index retrace. Pound dollar testing resistance and coming back down, maybe coming to some selling pressures. Looking at this, 50 is right there. 38.2 is right there, doesn't make sense. It just broke 23 and back down. So I'll keep those levels, I don't need it. Trend line is broken, we can take that away. Naren, yes, there has been talk about 165 being the line in the sand for the US yen. I think that there was a range between 164 and 165. So it's just between those levels that you have to be super careful with, especially careful with. But they might come in a little bit earlier, right? They might come in a little bit earlier just to test it out, and then again more forcefully at 164 or 165, which is right up there. Right, 165 is right up there. Pound dollar again. I highlighted this in the group. I was very keen on that counter trend move, that break to the upside, but so far it hasn't happened. In fact, it's held that resistance. Just check my lines. I got too many lines here. I'm happy with those. Okay. Looking at this, it feels like if the dollar does push, look at it, it's retracing quite strongly. If it does push to the upside, then we're going to see the pound dollar push back down, but it is still within this range. right? It's still within this tricky range of 1.26 and 1.27, right? I think we can revise this to put it to 1.27. There we go. Then we don't need the 23.6, and we can keep the other levels there. That's a 38.2 right there. So I think it's going to keep within this range, bearing in mind that we do have, where am I? The 4th of July parliamentary elections to come from the UK, or for the UK. Again, haven't looked into it too much. It's likely that we might see a similar move on with the euro, where we saw it spike up. So I would actually like looking at this. Maybe it sits in this range, maybe it trades a little bit lower, could give us a better opportunity to buy it up. But for now, I feel that it's ranging, right? Ranging, and it needs to stay above 1.26. And I don't have anything on the pound. If I really wanted to, I'll look for that breakout, but nothing on the pound yet. Okay. Oh man, go back. Okay. Okay. Wide range of 100 pips between 1.26 and 1.27. Nothing yet. Waiting for breakout. Okay. No big moves yet. Waiting for a breakout either to the downside, which I wouldn't like too much. Ideally, I would see it break that resistance and push higher up. Okay, then with that, the euro didn't test and reject. In fact, it tested and broke straight up because of the results of the election. It sees that it spiked out. It wasn't outside of the Bollinger, but it did come back in. 38.2 there. That all makes sense. 50 is still right there. Came close to 50. Okay. Now we're looking at this. Needs to stay above 23.6 to continue pushing higher. I would be looking for it to test and bounce off this level to push up, but I wouldn't be looking to buy it off the bounce. I'll be looking for it to break that previous high before you get into that trade to the upside. What you look out for would be 1.0780, stop loss 30, just below that previous level, and take profit 60, 70 pip to the upside towards that previous high. Continuing on, we'll see that no trend lines don't make sense. Right, we're looking for it to finish its retracement and push back up. Okay, I like that. 1.0780, 30 to 70 to the upside. We're looking at buying 1.0780, 30 to 70. 1.0780, stop loss 30, take profit 70 to the upside. Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Could it come back down? Not going to rule out the chance that it reverses, but wouldn't be looking to do any trades in the middle here. very similar to the pound where it's been sitting in that range. So we're looking for that breakout. It looks like it broke out, but it's looking to retrace and possibly continue to the upside. Then on to US Swiss franc, sitting right across it. What has happened to the Swiss franc? Nothing much. It's set within that little circle or oval that I've drawn for it. Still looking at it sitting across. If the dollar does have that big push to the upside, then we're looking for it to break that resistance. I'll maintain this view 9020.15 to 55 to the upside on dollar strength scenario. 9020.15 to 55 to the upside if the dollar does push strongly back up. If it rejects this level and turns back down, I think that on dollar weakness, we have a few other more interesting trade setups that we'll get into instead of the US Swiss franc. Okay, then onto the US CAD. We were looking for it to test and bounce. It tested, it hasn't bounced. It came very close to that, but it hasn't bounced off. So now we're looking for it to do the same thing. We're looking for it to do the same thing. That will make sense. Consolidate here again, dollar strength scenario, looking for it to bounce. 1.3695, 20 to 80 to the upside. I'll keep that. Yep. Then we were talking about a couple of other cross pairs. We had the pound Aussie where it didn't test up and it just went straight down, but it did come down to a support and bounce back up. Now it's retracing back down. Not something I always look at, but I thought I'll talk about this, is that if it does come down and break this support, then it could get quite interesting, because you see that this support level has held for a very long time. Even before that, if it breaks this point, this was back in January where it came up. All right, so now we're looking at it to break. If it does come down strongly, whether it is the Aussie dollar strength pushing up, that's going to drag the pound Aussie down, or whether it's the pound maybe weakening back down again into the range, could break that support and head lower down. So you'll be looking at 1.8920, stop loss 40 pips, take profit, good 130 to the downside, but there are some levels of hesitation that you want to look out for at about 1.8860, just right in the middle of that. Okay. Then with that as well, I was looking at the pound yen. I was looking at the pound yen. We talked about this, where it's going to slowly push up towards the top of the channel. It's done that. It looks like it's testing and it's going to push back down. Right? Take that away. You see, take that one away as well. You'll see that it went up, tested the top of the channel. Looks like it might retrace back down, but big upside trend. So you're looking for it to come back down, maybe test that previous level at 203.60. I'll be looking for that kind of move back up again. Right, a test and a bounce back up. This downward push could be due to the pound dollar pushing lower, but then we're looking at the yen possibly dragging it all back up again to the upside. Okay, apart from that, nothing else super exciting. Gold tested 23.37, retraced back down, but still sitting at this point here, 23.20, ranging. At this point here, what I'm looking out for as it sits in that range, again, I'm anticipating it. It doesn't look like it now, right? It doesn't look like it now, but I'm anticipating a possible rejection back down on the dollar. If that pushes down, we're going to see gold push back up. I wouldn't do anything in this range, but I'll look for it to break above. Let me think. Wait. I was going to say I wanted it to break above that 2340 level to push higher. It looks like a bit of a ugly head and shoulder there. Doesn't really pan out. I think on dollar weakness, we're definitely going to see that push up. But maybe we could see it sit in that range. I think there are two key levels here on gold where it could break. We're looking for either that two breaks to the upside or to the downside. I'm actually thinking now that that upside might be supported. So we're looking at a break of 2340 to possibly get to 2366. There you go. Naren gone to gold, shorting it as it rejected 2340. Brilliant, very nice. Now we're looking for a possible, well, wait for possible breakout of 2340 to 2366 to the upside on gold. I don't think it'll get up there straight away with no major news. I think 2352 would be a reasonable level. There we go. Okay. Aussie yen, yes, we can do that. So again, Aussie dollar looking like it's trying to push to the upside with a bit of that bearish flag with that resistance nearby. US yen sitting right there looking like it could push up. Thanks for spotting that, Basanta, because yes, it does look like a good possible move on the Aussie yen. So if you had that, you see that you'll be running that trade up. If you didn't get into that move, maybe a bit of a smaller move to the upside could be there. 107.60, 40 pip, tight, stop loss. No, you go 1:1. 40 to 40 to the upside there. At best, you can get in a little bit earlier, but I think that would be, you know, expecting that round number. Again, Aussie dollar does have a little bit of an upside move, but the resistance does seem like it's holding it there, right? Could hold it there, and then US yen does need to have first that breakout. Then you could see that move. So I think Aussie yen does have that potential, but there are a few things that need to play out first before we get to that point. I'm looking at the US yen. I'm thinking that maybe even if it breaks past 161.20, you could look at that. So I'll change that. 161.20 stop loss, we're looking at a 30 pip. Take profit, we're looking at a 80 pips to the upside. Right, so today is going to test your patience because on the Kiwi, it's sitting right along that point, not ready for a breakout to the upside yet. The Aussie does look like looks like it's going to push up, but you're going to sit there and be like, I want to get in, I want to get in. By the time you get in, it might be at a resistance, so you have to test the patience there again. US yen, you might want to be a bit more speculative on this, but if you're ready to take the risk on that. Pound dollar tested resistance, rejecting tracing right back down. It's within that range, which is not going to be very exciting. On hindsight, it's going to look like you could have entered trades, but it's going to spike around. Euro dollar pushed up, retracing quite strongly right now, waiting for a possible bounce and continuation back up. US Swiss franc seems like it's been sitting in there, but it seems like if it does break out, that could seem to be the first one to move. And then the USCAD is also going to take a little bit longer. So today might not be the day where you're going to be entering a lot of trades. It might be the day where you're sitting there waiting for price to move and to go do something else, check back, see if the setup works. Maybe it'll be better to focus more onto it for tomorrow and the week through the week. Okay, so not super exciting for now, but we have our setups, we have the levels that we're looking out for. If you have any questions, put it into the chat or onto the Discord channel. I'll look forward to chatting with you there. And if not, I'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same place on the live stream again. Take care now. Bye-bye.